Okay, one thing we do note at the Public Service Commission is that even though there are circulars giving instructions or guidelines, rather, of how performance appraisals ought to be completed, we note that many ministries still have challenge with completing them accurately. And so, what I want to say to you here today is that if you are a supervisor, you have to ensure that all sections of the appraisal is mutually supporting. You have to make sure, and I'm going to tell you what I mean when we get to the instrument. I'm going to show you. Okay, and then I want to say to you that you have to ensure that all markings for unsatisfactory performance or conduct should be supported by documents. You should have supporting documents. Like for instance, if you rate an employee below average or poor, you should have the letters on file to say that you have advised them of their performance, not at the end of the year, because you should have been evaluating them before, giving them an opportunity to address their weak areas. And so when we say letters, we're talking about a such instance because it's not a one-time evaluating. You're evaluating them from January all the way to December. And so if they had a misconduct and they continue in that vein and you want to report that, you should have had documentary proof on file so that we at the commission can now review that. Okay, and so I'm saying also, don't ever overstate when you're completing the report. Don't ever overstate in the ratings and don't understate. There is danger in that. I can tell you for sure. We have seen where a supervisor overstated or overrated this person and give them gleaming remarks. All 5, they had wonderful ratings. And this particular individual was promoted. When the promotion perhaps would have came into the unit and everybody became aware of it, there was great concern because people will write and they will say, how could this person have been promoted and they don't come to work? How could this person be promoted and they always late? How could this person be promoted? And guess what? Supervisors, they just go copy the book. They copy that person that signed the attendance register. They copy all those things and they send it as proof. So you can cause an employee who's not performing well to be promoted when they should not have been promoted. And then if you understate, you can cause an employee who performs well not be promoted by giving them unfair ratings. And so that's why we say, have this dialogue all through the year. Try to have good rapport with your staff. If you see that they're not performing at their best, that is why it's good to have this kind of good rapport. You check on them so that you can see and they can know that you actually care about them and you can see the performance increasing. And when there's a decline, talk with them and say, man, listen, I see you was coming to work and you were doing so well and all of a sudden your performance declined, your attendance declined. Is something going on? And if they reveal to you what is going on, how can you help? Because if you can help them before the end of the year, and if you help them and they become better, you can't help them and then whip them with the same thing that you would have helped them with. And so we try to encourage better rapport so that at the end of the year, it won't be pulling teeth, and to encourage supervisors to not overstate or understate, okay? And then we say, as supervisors, ensure, not only supervisors, but the person who's also being appraised, ensure that all of your government name is on the performance appraisal. For instance, I am Nicole Tanya Johnson Knowles. When I got my performance appraisal to do, I put all of my government name on that performance appraisal. And you might say that's not necessary. I can tell you, it is necessary, because you would note that there are many Nicole Tanya Johnson within the public service. There are many Nicole Tanya Knowles in the public service. In fact, some even born at the correct date, the same date that I have been born. And so I realize that, listen, the best thing to do, if you put all your name there, you cannot have mistaken identification. And I know of an instance that had happened where someone put, just a portion of their names. And of course, you're reading the files and you're looking for this person performance appraisal, and all you see is the person name. And let's just say John Doe. And so, of course, the file looked like it belonged to John Doe. And you see, you're looking at this person's performance is so bad. Why would they recommend them for promotion? Because when you look at the date of birth, we don't know your date of birth. And then when come to find out, there's a different John Doe. So that means that that individual perhaps could not have gotten promoted, perhaps could not have gotten confirmed, perhaps could not have gotten whatever was the recommendation. So you see, that's why I say put all of your government name there. They can't mistake that. Nicole Tanya Johnson Knowles, you got me, that's my name. Okay, and so let's ensure that that is there. And then we want to ensure that all information relative to dates should be in the format day, month, year. Because sometimes, we interchange them. We throw the month first and then the date and then the year. And then you put it one way and the supervisor put it one way and then it's mistaken. And so we try to encourage person, listen, put it this way. The day, the month, the year. Be consistent in how it is placed there, okay? And again, accurate job description is attached. Ensure that the job description fits the post that the person is actually in, their status. We have seen it at the commission. An individual who is listed as painter, but when we look at the job description attached, they have him as loader. And when you look into the details of it, you're like, but this can't be the same person, eh? So we want to encourage you to make sure that the job description matches the post that the individual carries. Now, if that individual also performs the job of a loader, we would say also include it in there. So perhaps it could benefit that individual later on if he or she so wishes to be reclassified or move to another career. Okay, but we want to make sure that the job description is accurate. Okay, and that the person position is clearly stated. Okay, and so when we talk about that big factor, when we look at the factors 9 and 10 within the employee performance appraisal report, we say supervisors, make sure HR fill that portion out. Because sometimes what we note at the commission is that, supervisors, if you're doing a report and you don't remember, sometimes the reports are in late and you're doing a report and this for 2016 and we now in 2025. You can't remember what happened in 2016. So then you turn around and check. I think he was there. Outstanding. I don't think he was late. Above average. And then when the HR, now it gets to the HR and we're now reviewing the file. Let me tell you the inconsistencies that we see. And that's why we say make sure that the report is mutually supporting. You're looking at the file. And based on the file, you see all of these letters on the file advising the individual about the lateness, about being AWOL, about his punctuality, about her. And you're like, well, so nobody looked at this? That is the HR function. Make sure that the HR inserts the correct amount of lateness, if there is any, and punctuality, so that the report is fair in essence. You want to make sure that that happens. And if there is a place that an error would have been made, please do not use liquid paper. No liquid paper should be placed on the performance appraisal. You draw a line through it and initial, because oftentimes we have a line drawn through and then we have an X someplace and we can't determine which one it is. And so we would encourage you to make sure it's clear. If you cross it out, initial it and make sure the initials are clear as well, because sometimes it's not clear. And so we encourage supervisors, make sure that the record is clear, because this is your This is the person who works with you, and you want to make sure that they are rated properly for whenever their reports are reviewed, okay? And so we want to say that ensure that the sick leave, all of those sick leave, if they're granted sick leave under General Orders 1560 to 1582, you want to make sure it's supported by medical. Okay, for instance, this is something that we have seen so often at the commission, and so often we have to write back and forth with ministries. Okay, the entitlement. Civil servants are entitled to 20 sick days for one given year. 12 months, 26 days. Out of the 20 sick days that we have, 14 of those days can be with medical. The balance of 6 is call-in days. You have 6 out of 6 call-in days you can make 2 times. If you're sick today and you're sick tomorrow, you can call in. On the 3rd day, you need to show up to work or show up with a medical to cover those days. Not a medical to cover the 3rd day, but you need to cover the medical to cover all of those days. But what we note was oftentimes this area here seems to be confused. So we would see that sometimes employees would be rated 14 days out of 6. And we know something is wrong right away. And that's 14 days out of 6 call-in days. And then they have, under the 14 days that they allowed with medical, then they have 14 days with medical, and that's fine. And then the next column says additional days taken without medical. And underneath that column, sometimes you see they have 200 days. And then now for the overall rating, it's check. The employee is above average or outstanding. The employee cannot be outstanding or above average or even average if they have exceeded the amount of allowed days. They cannot. And so if this employee now exceeds 13 days and 9 days, and they go beyond these days, that employee should be rated, and we're talking about without medical now. They should be rated appropriately, whether it's poor or below average, but they should be appropriately rated. Now, if this employee took all of their allowance, but they had, let's say, 250 days with medical. You hear that? With medical. Right. We note that supervisors were downgrading the employees. And that is wrong. As long as that employee provides a medical for his or her leave, they should not be downgraded and they should not receive adverse rating. They should be rated in the category based on what they have taken. You can't rate them for being sick. You can't rate them bad for being sick if they provide the medical. They should still be rated fairly. And so, supervisors, we really need you to pay attention to that area there. There's a lot of complaints in that area, and it has to be dealt with. And so if you see that the employee is absent, this is your time now for you to really attach all those medicals. Then if you don't think you can remember, attach them so we can help you. Or call us in. Let us help you to know how to fill out this form better. Or go to your HR. They are there to help. But your staff should not be downgraded for being sick if they provide a medical. Your staff should not be upgraded in their performance if they've not provided a medical and they have exceeded their allowance. So supervisors or reporting officers, we're just here to remind you on how to complete the performance appraisal. Reminding you to complete, if individuals are supervisors, because not if they supervise staff as well, we're reminding you to assess them in that area On part 3, on page 4, you have to assess them. And we know that has been a problem as well. And you would disenfranchise your officer, your staff, by not rating them in that area. Because if their next post requires them to supervise, however, you have not rated them, you really disenfranchising them. So if they are made supervisors by virtue of their posting, please give them the duties and please rate them accordingly. Okay? And so we just want to remind you of that. And we also want to remind you that officers whose scales share parity cannot supervise the others. I know at times we have shortage. We do understand we have shortage in the public service. We understand that sometimes the competencies are not there. We understand all of these things, but to avoid trouble, to avoid these employees misbehaving and reporting you, do not allow an officer whose scale shares parity with another officer to supervise. A clerk can't supervise a clerk. Yeah, the clerk may they may become clerk earlier than that clerk, but a clerk is a clerk. They should not be supervising one another. And so be mindful of that. Do not allow that to happen so that you don't have disgruntled staff. Unhappy staff don't perform. And when they don't perform, that means there's low productivity. When there's low productivity, that means there's inefficiency there. And when there's inefficiency there, that means that persons are being paid out of the public purse and they're not working for that money. And so you too can play a role by ensuring that, you don't help create a problem, but try your best to make sure that the person who supervises is that head person, who's that more senior person so that, there's clear distinction on roles. Okay? All right, and then I just want to bring to the attention that officers being assessed, whether they are agreed. We mentioned that earlier. Now, sometimes we know that our staff, whether or not they agree with the ratings they receive, because not everyone is going to agree, they are encouraged to sign the report. In fact, on the top of that report, you'll see Government of the Bahamas. So the report ain't belong to them and it ain't belong to you. That is the property of the Government of the Bahamas, and it is a legal document in the sense that it is the authority that is given to be able to assess a performance within the public service. So we want to make sure that the individual signs it. And if they have any discrepancy, just encourage them to say, "We'll see my note at employee comments, see my note, see my letter dated so and so." And then once we at the commission review it, we can say, okay, this person is disgruntled, see my note, and we will, look to the back of it. And if the report or the letter is not there, then we will write to the ministry and we'll query that. Please, we note that the officer is disgruntled. Please provide us with a copy of his or her letter dated so and so. And we will get that letter. We will review that letter. And then the commission will respond. Okay? Supervisors, there's a role to play for both you and your staff. And so as we have encouraged earlier, concerning the liquid paper, concerning the job description, and also if there's letters where your staff has really performed well, you want to give them letters of commendation. You want to also attach those to it, because it can't always be just the bad. And so all of those things, the commission looks forward to seeing that the staff is actually performing well. Okay, and so once all party signs off on the report, of course, the head of the department, the PS must sign, and then, of course, then it is forwarded to the commission, okay? Make sure that the bottom of page 2, 3, and 4 is signed by the employee. Make sure the employee sign it. And supervisors, I can say this, make sure, allow your staff to see your comments in there first. If you have a comment by reporting officer's comment, make sure you put your comments in first and you sign and you date it before your staff signs off on that report. Because we're not only just signing off on a report, you want to build a trust mechanism as well, because we want to make sure that Not saying that you're going to do anything and towards them, but it has happened, and that's what has led me to say this. That no further comments are added thereafter. You know, you want to have this transparency, this openness, so that at the end of the day, there's increased productivity, there's increased efficiency. So make sure that you allow yourself to sign whatever comments right there, and then they can read that and respond.